I'm just a truck driver. That's all I've ever been. I haul cargo from state to state, coast to coast. My hands on the wheel and my eyes on the endless ribbon of asphalt. It's a lonely life, but it was a good life. It was a life that paid the bills, put food on the table, and gave me the most precious thing a man could ever ask for. A daughter. Her name is Lily. From the moment she was born, she was my whole world. Her mother left us when she was just a toddler, skipping town with some smooth-talking salesman who promised her the moon. I never remarried. I didn't need to. I had Lily, and that was enough. I poured every ounce of my love, every single dollar I earned, into giving her a good life. I worked double shifts, missed birthdays and school plays, all so she could have the best. So she could go to college, have nice clothes, and never, ever feel the kind of lack I felt growing up. I still remember the day I got the call. I was somewhere in Nevada, the desert sun baking the cab of my truck into a furnace. The phone crackled to life, and it was Lily. She was crying, but not the sad kind of crying. The kind of crying that comes with overwhelming joy. "Daddy," she sobbed, "I'm getting married." My heart swelled so big I thought it might burst right through my ribs. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said, my own voice thick with emotion. "Who's the lucky man?" "His name is Michael," she said. "He's perfect, Daddy. He's everything I ever dreamed of." We talked for an hour, and she told me all about him. A successful architect, kind, handsome, and head over heels in love with her. I was happier than I'd ever been. We started planning the wedding. Lily wanted it to be big, a real fairy tale. I didn't care about the cost. I'd been saving for years for exactly this moment. I told her to spare no expense. I wanted my little girl to have the perfect day. I pushed my body harder than ever, taking every long-haul job I could get my hands on. I was making good money, and the thought of walking my daughter down the aisle gave me all the energy I needed. But on a rainy night in Ohio, my world ended. My rig skidded on a patch of black ice, the kind you don't see until it's too late. The trailer jackknifed, and the whole thing rolled over. I remember the sound of twisting metal, the shattering of glass, and then a searing, blinding pain in my lower back. Felt like I'd been split in two. The next few weeks are a blur. There was surgery, then another surgery. There was physical therapy that felt like pure torture. The doctors gave me the news with grim faces and sympathetic eyes. "Mr. Miller," they said, "you have a severe spinal cord injury. You'll never walk again." My life as a truck driver was over. But more importantly, my life as a man who could walk his daughter down the aisle was over. I was confined to a wheelchair. The news hit Lily hard. She came to visit me in the hospital, but she couldn't even look me in the eyes. She just stared at the floor, at the walls, anywhere but at me. "The wedding is still on, right?" she whispered. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, trying to put on a brave face. "Nothing is going to stop your wedding. I'll be there." She looked at me then, a strange, unreadable look in her eyes. "Okay, Daddy," she said, but something felt off. The warmth was gone. The connection felt severed. She started visiting less and less. Her calls became shorter, more infrequent. When I'd ask her about the wedding plans, she'd get this distant tone in her voice. "It's fine, Daddy. I've got it handled." I chalked it up to stress. Weddings are stressful, right? She was just a busy bride-to-be. I was being too sensitive. The day of the wedding was a nightmare. I struggled for over an hour just to get ready, getting into a new suit that I had to have specially tailored so it would look right in the chair. Michael had been wonderful, arranging for a limousine that could handle a wheelchair. He was a good man, that Michael. I could see it in his eyes. He treated Lily like a princess. He even came to the hospital to see me, shaking my hand and telling me how important it was to him that I give him my blessing. "Lily is everything to me, Mr. Miller," he'd said. "I'll spend the rest of my life making her happy." I believed him. I trusted him with my daughter. The drive to the church was long and quiet. My heart was pounding. The church was a massive, beautiful structure. Stained glass windows glowed in the afternoon sun, and the pews were packed with 200 guests. All of Lily's friends, Michael's family, people I'd never even met. And at the end of that long aisle, under a beautiful arch of white lilies, stood my daughter. She looked like an angel in her white dress. But her smile was gone. It was replaced with a tight, grim line. She didn't look happy. She looked uncomfortable. When my cue came, I began to wheel myself down the aisle. It's a long way, and it feels even longer when every single eye is on you. The clicking of my wheels on the marble floor sounded like drumbeats in the silent church. I saw the whispers start. People were looking at me, then quickly looking away. I tried to keep my chin up, to maintain my dignity. But the pity in their eyes was a knife in my gut. When I finally reached the altar, I looked up at my daughter. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, reaching my hand up to her. "You look beautiful." I just wanted to hold her hand, just for a moment, to feel a connection, to share this one, final, perfect moment with my little girl. But she just stared at my outstretched hand like it was a venomous snake. The color had drained from her face. A muscle in her jaw was twitching. Then, she leaned in close, her breath hot on my ear. In a voice so quiet only I could hear, she whispered, "You're useless to me like this. You couldn't even walk me down the aisle. You embarrassed me." Those words hit me with the force of a freight train. I felt a physical pain, a tearing in my chest, that was 1,000 times worse than the pain in my back. It was like she had reached into my soul and ripped my heart out. The whispers in the crowd grew louder. I could feel the heat rising to my face, not from embarrassment, but from a crushing, soul-shattering humiliation. My own daughter, my whole world. She didn't see a father. She saw a liability, a broken man in a chair. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to grab her and shake her. But I couldn't. I couldn't do anything. My hands were trembling as I grabbed the wheels of my chair and turned around. I didn't say a word. I didn't defend myself. I just rolled away. I was halfway down the aisle, my vision blurred with unshed tears, when I heard the commotion behind me. There was a collective gasp from the crowd, a sharp, discordant sound. I stopped and turned around. Michael, the groom, had let go of Lily's hand. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at me. His face had gone from confusion to a cold, hard fury. He took a step towards me, but then he stopped. He turned to face the congregation. Silence fell over the church, thick and suffocating. And then Michael began to speak. His voice wasn't loud, but it was clear as a bell, cutting through the silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice steady, but laced with disgust. "I have just witnessed the most despicable thing I have ever seen in my life." He turned and pointed at me. "That man in the wheelchair is the man who raised this woman. He worked his fingers to the bone to give her everything she has. And tonight, in front of all of you, she told him he was useless to her, because he has a disability." Lily's face went white as a ghost. She started shaking her head, a frantic, jerky motion. "Michael, no. That's not what happened," she stammered. But Michael wasn't listening. He just held up his hand to silence her. He looked at the guests, his expression grim. "I wanted to marry this woman," he continued. "I thought she was kind. I thought she was good. But now I see her true colors. I will not tie my life to a person who is so cruel, so heartless, to the man who gave her life. This wedding is off. There will be no wedding today." Then he faced Lily. "You are a disgrace," he said. "And you are not the kind of person I want to spend my life with. I can't marry someone who can't even show basic human decency to her own father." Lily was gasping for air, her hand clutching the fabric of her dress. She looked around, searching for support. But all she saw were faces of shock and disgust. The guests weren't whispering anymore. They were staring. Some of them were openly shaking their heads. I saw her mother, her own aunt, looking at her with absolute horror. Then the murmuring started. It was a low, angry buzz. "What kind of person says that?" I heard a woman say. "My God, she told her disabled father he was useless?" Another voice chimed in. A group of Michael's friends were just staring at Lily with cold hatred. Lily was frozen to the spot. It was like all the air had been sucked out of the room. She looked like a child lost in a nightmare. I saw her mouth open and close, but no words came out. She started to visibly shake, a fine tremor running through her entire body. Then Michael did the one thing no one expected. He walked down the aisle not to Lily, but to me. He knelt down in front of my wheelchair. "Mr. Miller," he said, his voice tight with suppressed emotion. "I am so sorry. I had no idea. I am so sorry you had to hear that." I just looked at him. I didn't know what to say. He helped me turn my chair around, and without another word, we rolled out of the church together. I could hear the chaos erupting behind us. I heard Lily scream. I heard people shouting. I heard the sound of her whole perfect world imploding. But I didn't look back. The rain was coming down in sheets, a cold, cleansing downpour that felt almost biblical. I sat in the parking lot, alone. I don't even know how I got there. Michael had left me for a moment to retrieve something, I think. The sky was dark, and the wind was howling. A few minutes later, the church doors burst open. Lily came stumbling out, her beautiful white dress soaking wet, her hair plastered to her face. The rain was pouring off her like water off a rock. She was sobbing, her mascara running down her cheeks in black streaks. She stood in the parking lot for a moment, just screaming and crying. Then, she saw me, and her face contorted with pure, unadulterated rage. She stormed over to me, her heels splashing in puddles. "This is your fault," she screamed, her voice shrill and broken. "You ruined my life. You ruined my wedding. Why couldn't you just stay home? Why did you have to come and embarrass me?" She was hysterical beyond reason. "I hate you. I wish you had died in that accident. I wish you were dead." And with that, she ran off into the night, leaving me sitting alone in the rain. I was left there, freezing and alone. All the guests were gone. The party had ended in the most spectacular disaster imaginable. I don't know how long I sat there, shivering, my mind a complete blank. I wasn't even thinking anymore. I was just a hollow shell. Eventually, I saw headlights piercing the gloom. It was Michael. He had returned for something he'd left behind. When he saw me, he looked horrified. "Mr. Miller, you're freezing." He ran over, his face a mask of concern. He draped his jacket over my shoulders and helped me into his car. He drove me home, my little house, the house I had bought for Lily, the house where she'd grown up. When we pulled into the driveway, we noticed the front door was ajar. A sliver of light spilled out into the darkness. Michael helped me inside. The house was a wreck. Drawers were pulled open, and clothes were scattered everywhere. Lily was there, like a ghost in a white dress. She had apparently ransacked the place looking for something. When she saw us walk in, she let out a blood-curdling scream. She flew at me, her hands outstretched, reaching for my throat. "You took everything from me," she shrieked. "I'll kill you." She lunged at my wheelchair, trying to knock me over. Michael moved faster than I could have imagined. He stepped between us, grabbing her arms and pushing her back. "Lily, what the hell are you doing?" he shouted. "Get away from your father." Lily was thrashing and screaming, a wild, crazed look in her eyes. She was completely out of control, a dangerous, violent animal. I had been silent the entire night. I had swallowed every bitter word, every crushing blow. But in that moment, watching my daughter try to attack me, something inside me snapped. It was like a dam breaking inside my soul. The years of sacrifice, the pain, the heartbreak, it all came flooding out. I looked at her, this stranger wearing my daughter's face, and I felt nothing but a cold, hollow emptiness. "Get out," I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried a finality that silenced the room. Lily stopped her thrashing. She looked at me, her eyes wide. "What?" she choked out. "Get out of my house, Lily," I said again, my voice level but icy. "I gave you everything, everything I had, and this is how you repay me. You told me I was useless. You wished I was dead. You tried to attack me. I don't know who you are anymore, but you are not my daughter. You are not welcome here. Get out of my house." Michael helped her gather a few things. She was still crying, but the rage was gone. In its place was a dawning horror, a realization of what she had done. She looked at me one last time, her eyes filled with tears. "Daddy, please," she whispered. I just turned my chair away. Couldn't look at her. The door closed behind them and I was alone. For the first time in my life, I was truly and utterly alone. The silence of the house was deafening. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. I lived in that house, a ghost in my own home. Every corner held a memory of Lily. I'd see her as a little girl, running through the living room. I'd hear her laughter echoing in the hallways. I'd remember the way she used to hold my hand when she was scared. The pain was a constant, gnawing presence. It was worse than the physical pain in my back. My friends, the few I had left from my trucking days, tried to check on me. But I pushed everyone away. I was ashamed, humiliated. I felt like a failure. My own daughter had looked at me and seen a useless, broken man. And in my darkest moments, I started to believe it. A month passed. A lonely, agonizing month. I barely ate. I barely slept. I just existed in that chair, staring at the walls. The winter chill had set in, and the house was drafty, but I didn't even have the energy to fix the heater. I was just waiting for something. I didn't know what. And then the day came. I was sitting in the living room, looking at a picture of Lily from her college graduation. We were both smiling in that picture. We were happy. A tear rolled down my cheek. And then, I heard a car pull into the driveway. My heart jumped. I knew it was her. There was a knock at the door. A hesitant, soft knock. I didn't answer. Couldn't. I didn't have the strength. The door creaked open. It was Lily. She looked terrible. She had lost a lot of weight. Her eyes were bloodshot and ringed with dark circles. She was wearing old jeans and a sweater, nothing like the fancy clothes she used to wear. She stood in the doorway, shivering in the cold. "Daddy?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "Can I come in?" I still didn't speak. I just stared at her. She walked in, her steps slow and unsure. She stood in front of me, her hands clenched at her sides. Then she dropped to her knees. It was the most gut-wrenching thing I'd ever seen. She looked up at me, her face a mess of tears. "Daddy," she sobbed. "I am so sorry." The words were jagged, cutting their way out of her. "I'm so sorry for what I said. I'm so sorry for how I treated you. I'm a monster. I'm the most horrible person on this planet." She broke down then, completely and utterly. She started telling me everything. She explained how Michael's family was wealthy, how she had felt this immense pressure to be perfect, to have the perfect wedding, the perfect husband. She said she felt like my wheelchair was a stain on her perfect picture. She was so obsessed with her own image, so consumed by the superficial, that she lost her soul. "I was so scared they would see me differently," she said, sobbing. "I was so scared they wouldn't accept me if they saw my broken father. I was a coward, Daddy. I was a weak, pathetic coward." She told me how Michael had walked away from her that night and never looked back. He had moved to another state, got a new job, and completely cut all contact with her. She told me how she had been living with a friend, but she couldn't even bear to look at herself in the mirror. She was humiliated. She was broken. She was completely alone. "I've had a month to think about what I did," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "A month of pure hell. I played that moment over and over in my head. The look on your face. The sound of my own voice saying those awful, awful words. I realized that I had thrown away the only person in my life who ever really loved me. I destroyed my own life. I lost my fiancé, my family, my friends, and I almost lost my father. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I don't. But I had to come here and tell you that I am sorry. I had to tell you that you are not useless. You are the strongest, most amazing person I've ever known." She reached out and took my hand. I flinched. I remembered the last time she had refused my hand. The pain of that rejection was still fresh. But she held on tight, her fingers intertwining with mine. "Daddy, please," she begged, looking into my eyes with a terrifying desperation. "Please let me try to make this right. I'll do anything. I'll leave and never come back if you want me to. I just need you to know that I regret it more than anything in the world. I was so wrong, Daddy. So wrong. She waited for my response. The silence stretched on, filled only with her quiet sobs. A whole month of pain and loneliness had passed. I had been preparing myself for this moment. I had imagined all the things I would say. I would tell her how much she hurt me. I would make her feel as small as she made me feel. I would get my revenge. And I did. But not in the way I had planned. The perfect punishment, the ultimate justice, wasn't a loud, dramatic explosion. It wasn't a shouting match or a bitter argument. It was this, right here, the sight of her, broken and humiliated, begging for a scrap of my love. She was suffering 1,000 times more than I could have ever made her suffer. Her own guilt and shame had done the work for me. She was in hell and she had put herself there. In that moment, I looked at my daughter, and I didn't see a monster. I saw a lost little girl who had made a terrible, awful mistake. I saw the same girl who used to hold my hand when she was scared. I squeezed her hand back, just a little. Her eyes shot up, wide with disbelief. A tiny sliver of hope flickered in their depths. "Daddy?" she said, her voice trembling. I took a deep, shuddering breath. The tears were streaming down my face now, too. "I was so angry, Lily," I finally said, my voice thick with emotion. "I was so hurt. I still am." I paused, looking at her. "But I'm your father, and no matter what you do, no matter how much you hurt me, I will always love you." The moment I said those words, the dam inside her broke again. She lunged forward, wrapping her arms around me and burying her face in my chest. She held me tight, her body shaking with sobs. I wrapped my arms around her, feeling the warmth of her hug. We stayed like that for a long time. The words had been spoken. The betrayal had been acknowledged. The pain was real, but the connection, the love, that thread that had been stretched so thin, was still there. I never got revenge on my daughter, because there was no revenge that could match the punishment she had already given herself. The humiliation of her own actions, the loss of her love, the destruction of her perfect life, that was the ultimate justice. And in the end, I didn't need to destroy her to feel whole again. I just needed my daughter back.